When you think about all the different styles of music out there that you could potentially pursue and make a career focusing on, it becomes very overwhelming. And for some of us, it's not really a huge deal because for some of us, what it comes down to is there's maybe one particular style of music that we really become infatuated with, and we want to maintain our focus in on that. So let's discuss the two different parts here and maybe some of the issues that you could potentially deal with in pursuing either full on one style or if you're spread out amongst all kinds of different styles. But before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Also, click the bell for notifications and leave a comment below for ideas on future videos. So like I've said before, the rock and heavy metal component of music was the driving force into why I developed such an interest in music and in wanting to play guitar. Now, later on, I started to open up and have some different styles of music that was influencing my listening, and it all, pretty much revolves still around rock, although I would say classical was another one in there. And, that's just from me as a kid, just going through and going to the AM channel. In case some of you aren't familiar, AM and FM radio. AM was the side that when you switch it over to the AM on the old radios, it's the one that sounds all staticky. And then when you do pick up a signal, a lot of times it doesn't sound very good. Now, there was classical music on the FM channel as well, but what I'm getting at is overall I did get into classical as well. Now, when I went on to college, then that's where jazz came into play, and I started to interact with some people that were also into blues and some people that were into groups like Dave Matthews and John Mayer, and I started to hear some other different styles of music and components that I was not so aware of. I mean, I kind of was, but I really didn't dig it very much. I was very isolated in my thinking on music and what I wanted to do with it. So as far as, pursuing a style, I would say this. You can have all these different influences, and I think it's important to have multiple influences. That way, if you are looking for an external kind of motivation, which I'm a little reluctant with sometimes, but the external motivation of having something that really drives this desire to want to pick up the guitar or any other instrument, play it, then I would say keep that open. Let those styles come into play because they can shape you. The bad thing about, and let's start with the cons here. The con, especially on the side of really wrapping yourself into one style of music, is that in pursuing one style of music, you have a very focused mindset on what music should sound like. And in some respects, I think that you can see that today, even with people that are not pursuing music. For people that are just listening in general, I would say that although there's all these different styles of music that people have access to, what ends up happening is their focus goes towards a very small subset of the music. And it comes down to, a lot of times, what I hear from the younger generation is a lot of rap music. And that's a very focused subset, and when you only listen to that style of music, when you hear other styles of music, then you're completely unaware, and a lot of times you probably won't like it. Now that goes for even someone like me in really being focused in a good bit on the heavy metal side of music. When you focus in on one style like that or one genre of music, what happens is that your mind's just not open a lot of times. The good on that, though, is that when you focus in on a particular style of music, it's because it must really mean something to you, unless it's being pushed at you like in a pop culture world, because a lot of times music is like that now, and it has been for quite a while. But if you found a style of music that you really like and certain artists that you really like, and especially if you're a musician, then I wouldn't say to run away from that just yet. The positive of that is that it really can push that drive to want to learn and pick up an instrument even more. Now, when you look at the other side of this, when you're dealing with multiple genres of music, in dealing with multiple genres of music, the negative could be that your attention, especially if you're trying to learn, your attention could go all over the place. So maybe you dabble a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and that's not necessarily wrong or a huge con necessarily, but if your mind is constantly just shifting, it's almost like context shifting, right? If you're back and forth all over the place and you don't allow yourself time to really develop and to pursue a certain style of music, then it's kind of hard to really get into it and understand it and learn it, because there's a lot within each style that you can really learn from. The positive is that it can influence your style. If you take someone that has a very limited scope on what it is that they do, you coming in with a focus on multiple genres of music have the benefit of being able to diversify and create a distinctive voice on the instrument that's all yours. Plus, when it comes to an even bigger picture of, are you pursuing music as a career and you're looking for gig potential or potential gigs, then what you have is the ability to be somewhat of a chameleon. Now, if you go outside the scope of what I'm talking about and you listen to what others say, it actually falls on both sides as well. You know, some recommend that you pursue one style. You get known for that one particular style because you have something that creates this credential. It's something that people will recognize, understand that you're really good at, and you become, in some respects, a master at it, or you're an authority figure of this particular style, and that really gives you a lot of potential credibility. And then there's others that say, well, and going back to that for a minute, that when you take that approach, then you also, once you develop that, you can move on at that point. Then you can start to go off into some other styles. And then there's the others that say when you pursue just one style, it's really not going to work for you very well, because you should be able to play any kind of music. That way you up your chances of being hired as a musician. The thing is, what I would say, from where I stand, my opinion on this, I can see both ways and I understand. I think that if you want to pursue multiple genres of music and styles, that you should really lock yourself into one and study it, at least for a time. You know, you could set it up to basically where it's like you're creating your own education system around studying styles of music. So maybe you could take something like funk music and you can study that for a prolonged period of time, listening to a lot of funk music, learning the tunes, finding players and imitating those players. And you could set yourself up, let's say you only done it for a month. And notice I did say you can only do it for a month, because if you really want to get into it, I would say more. But let's say you take a month, solid focus. The next month, blues, then jazz, then rock, then country. You know, you could continue to go down all these different avenues and set up a schedule so you can study it and immerse yourself into it. And then maybe wrap back around again and pick up things that you missed along the way. So if you're going to pursue the different styles, that's an approach to use. If you're kind of haphazard in the way that you approach it and you're all over the place every time you pick up the instrument, there's some good things that could come from it, but I would say that your focus is going to be all over the place, and you're probably going to have a lot of internal frustration because in your mind you're telling yourself, what's the problem? How come I'm focusing on this, and now I'm going to this, and now I'm going to this. I would take times and study and develop a schedule. And the other side of it, focusing on one particular style, I would say that that's also a really good thing, and doing it for an extended period of time. That way you can become known as the person who does that particular style, and you're really good at it. The thing also is, in pursuing one style, there's a lot of people that also do that. And on the other side too, that pursue a lot of different styles of music. What you have to do is incorporate these elements. Whichever approach you take, you have to figure out what stands out to you, what you pull, and putting your own voice into it. That way you start to develop as your own player. Because if you're trying to compete in a larger scale and think about, well, I want to study this particular style because I want to be the best. Well, you can try for it, and sure, you very well may achieve that. But most of the time, whatever style you choose, or if you choose to be one that pursues all of them, the chances of being the number one person is not very high. But if you develop your way of approaching it, then you could stand out and become known as the person that has their own unique characteristic, or at least one that is not so prevalent in the bigger scheme of things. So when it comes to approaching all these different ways of all these genres of music, or if you're going to go into one particular genre of music, whichever way you choose to go, there's benefits, the pros and cons. So take that all into consideration. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment or question below. Also, check the description below because that's where you're going to find a link to the lessons and courses that I offer on musiclessons.com. Thanks for listening and watching, and I'll catch you next time.